Hello friends. Have you ever wondered what happens when fire meets air, or more specifically, when an Aries snake crosses paths with a Gemini horse? On the surface, this duo seems like a cosmic cocktail shaken by fate, dynamic, electric, and occasionally combustible. But dig deeper, and the dance between these two reveals layers of intrigue, challenge, passion, and potential. Let's break it all down, from love and marriage to business and beyond. By the end, you'll know if this zodiacal pairing is a celestial match or a beautiful disaster. Love, passion in two speeds. Aries Snake and Gemini Horse love differently and intensely. But the contrast isn't just dramatic, it's foundational. Their love styles stem from vastly different emotional cores, which makes the initial spark thrilling, but the long-term compatibility complicated. The Aries Snake brings a brooding, magnetic charisma to the table. You don't date an Aries Snake. You get seduced into a cinematic experience that feels part espionage thriller, part Greek tragedy. This is someone who doesn't just love, they devour. Emotionally, spiritually, physically. Their style is not just affectionate, it's possessive. They don't love lightly, and they don't take rejection well. They bring with them a level of sensual calculation that borders on hypnotic. They pick their moments, read the room like a chessboard, and they know exactly when to strike. There's heat, but also strategy. Aries intensifies all this. The impulsive courage, the forward momentum, the unfiltered passion. It turns the snake's cold-blooded seduction into a full-blown inferno. On the opposite end, the Gemini Horse is a wildfire with no fence. Their love is not less real, it's just freer. Gemini Horse is the embodiment of curiosity, playfulness, and constant movement. They fall in love with moments, with words, with ideas. They don't tie their emotions to permanence, they thrive on the new, the now, the next. Gemini brings air sign wit and unpredictability. The horse injects raw energy and rebellion. This person doesn't do chains, not even golden ones. They view love as an ever-evolving dance, not a binding contract. So what happens when these two energies meet? The chemistry is volcanic. The snake, cool and deliberate, is utterly captivated by the horse's brightness and agility. The horse, always on the hunt for the next thrill, is momentarily mesmerized by the snake's deep waters and emotional gravity. The Aries Snake brings fire to the snake's cool seduction. The Gemini Horse adds wings to the horse's restless gallop. Their conversations crackle. Their physical attraction is electric. They may lock eyes across a crowded room and know, instinctively, that something is about to change. But beneath that spark is a hidden tug of war. The Aries Snake, despite being bold, also needs control. They want loyalty. They crave a love that goes beneath the surface, a love that binds, that endures, that claims. The Gemini Horse? They want joy, freedom, and the thrill of not knowing what's next. They prefer the wind, not the anchor. The conflict starts subtly. The snake wants to know the horse, truly know them. What do they feel? What are they hiding? The snake's probing nature is emotional excavation. But the horse doesn't want to be uncovered. They want to stay in motion. If the snake pushes too hard, the horse bolts. If the horse runs too far, the snake shuts down, their trust corroding with every unanswered question. Still, despite all this, the attraction persists. They challenge each other. The snake offers emotional depth the horse didn't know they needed. The horse introduces chaos and lightness that makes the snake feel alive. It's a rare alchemy, gravity meets flight. But can this work long-term? It's not easy. This relationship requires both to stretch. The snake must learn to trust the unknown, to love without always possessing. They need to understand that freedom isn't a threat, and mystery isn't always deception. The Gemini Horse must learn to pause, to breathe through discomfort, to stay when it's easier to run, and to realize that some roots don't trap, they stabilize. When this balance is achieved, something incredible happens. The snake becomes more fluid, the horse more grounded. Their differences evolve from battlefields into bridges. They don't just fall in love, they grow into it. So yes, it can work. But it's not a story of effortless harmony. It's a story of transformation, of two radically different hearts learning each other's language. And when they do, they don't just create love. They create alchemy. Marriage, a balancing act of chaos and chemistry. Marriage between an Aries snake and a Gemini horse is not your typical love story. It's the kind of union that refuses to be easily defined, often walking a razor-thin line between glorious passion and glorious dysfunction. Imagine trying to choreograph a ballet in the middle of a thunderstorm. That's the kind of intensity and unpredictability this match brings. On good days, it's a dynamic partnership pulsing with energy and brilliance. On tough days, it's a crash course in compromise and patience. At the heart of the Aries snake is a desire for structure and emotional stability. While the snake is known for its mysterious charm and emotional depth, the Aries overlay adds a layer of ambition, purpose, and a deeply ingrained desire for control over life's outcomes. When they commit to marriage, they don't do it casually. They want a life plan, not just a romantic journey. They envision a future, often built on clear roles, shared goals, and loyalty that's unshakable. They take their vows seriously, not just legally, but spiritually. There's a weight to their presence, a seriousness that says, "I've chosen you, and now we build." The Gemini horse? A completely different rhythm. Marriage, for them, is not about building walls, it's about opening doors. With the quick-witted duality of Gemini and the freedom-loving pulse of the horse, this partner approaches marriage as an ongoing experience rather than a final destination. They want to evolve, to play, to live in the moment. They're not disloyal, they're just allergic to monotony. The idea of emotional paperwork or overly defined roles sends them running. They love with brightness and spontaneity, often more like a breeze than a burning flame. So what happens when the planner marries the wanderer? You get fireworks, but you also get fire drills. At first, there's a magnetic pull. The snake admires the horse's independence and intellectual vibrancy. The horse is drawn to the snake's depth and confidence. There's a strong mutual respect, one built not just on attraction, but on a deep fascination with the other's way of being. The snake might think, how can someone be so fearless and fluid? The horse wonders, what's it like to feel that grounded, that sure of yourself? And it's precisely this fascination that fuels their initial success. But marriage tests the parts of a relationship dating never touches. Once the glitter fades and real life kicks in, so do their core differences. The snake begins to crave structure, dinner routines, financial plans, emotional consistency. The horse, meanwhile, may chafe under these expectations. They might interpret emotional check-ins as interrogation, or weekend plans as life sentences. Their fight-or-flight instinct kicks in, not because they don't love their partner, but because they fear becoming less themselves in the name of commitment. The Aries snake, fueled by both passion and principle, may double down, interpreting the horse's distance as indifference or immaturity. And here's where danger brews. The snake begins to try and fix the horse, while the horse begins to evade the snake. In the worst cases, the relationship enters a cycle of pursuit and escape, one partner clinging, the other slipping through fingers. The home becomes a battlefield for emotional control and personal freedom. Love, instead of a sanctuary, becomes a negotiation. But here's the magic: when they choose to meet halfway, it's not just workable, it's transformative. The snake must understand something fundamental. Love is not a contract. It's a living, breathing exchange. Possession and protection are not the same thing. By giving the horse room to breathe, truly breathe, they actually gain more trust and closeness in return. When the snake stops trying to shape their partner into something predictable, they uncover a partner who's willing to stay, not because they're caged, but because they're seen. And the horse, despite their free-spirited nature, has growing to do too. They must come to terms with the fact that commitment isn't a cage unless you treat it like one. Freedom doesn't mean being absent, it means being present by choice. The horse can learn that consistency doesn't kill adventure, it makes it sustainable. When they stop interpreting boundaries as threats, they start to discover how much deeper love can go when it's built on reliability. Their marriage will always have tension, it's baked into the pairing. But it's not toxic tension, it's creative tension. It's the difference between a flat line and a heartbeat. They'll constantly challenge each other, and if they lean into that challenge rather than resent it, their bond deepens with every year. Their home may not look like the one in a traditional magazine spread. It's not tidy, it's not rigid, but it's alive. There's laughter, debate, unexpected detours, and last-minute getaways. One week, they're reorganizing the living room at 2 a.m. The next, they're having deep philosophical talks over wine. Predictable? No. Passionate? Absolutely. The path forward requires mutual agreements on certain sacred principles. The snake must remember, love is not possession. Your partner is not your mirror, nor your responsibility to mold. They're a mystery to explore, not a puzzle to solve. The horse must remember, freedom doesn't mean neglect. Your presence is a gift, and offering it consistently is a language of love your partner depends on. And together, both must hold communication as sacred. Not just small talk, not just logistics, but the hard conversations. The ones where vulnerability shows up. The ones where truths get messy. The ones where you risk everything, and build something stronger from it. Marriage between an Aries snake and Gemini horse isn't for the faint of heart. But for those willing to grow, bend, and believe in the beauty of contradictions, it's a masterpiece in progress. One filled with chaos, chemistry, and a kind of connection that refuses to be ordinary. Sex, fireworks, mind games, and power plays. If love is a battlefield, then sex between an Aries snake and a Gemini horse is not just combat, it's artillery dressed in silk. This is not ordinary passion. It's calculated, chaotic, theatrical, and sometimes spiritual. Each encounter can feel like both a performance and a psychological experiment, where the prize is not just pleasure, but dominance, connection, and transformation. Their bedroom dynamic is not for the faint-hearted. It's for those who want to live on the edge of vulnerability and control, power and play. The Aries snake doesn't just bring fire to sex, they bring intent. Every glance, every touch, every pause is engineered for maximum impact. They don't rush, they orchestrate. Intimacy, for them, is an extension of emotional mastery. They want to feel everything, not just physically, but spiritually and psychologically. Aries adds boldness and drive to the already enigmatic snake, resulting in a lover who is both primal and refined. They want to be desired, but more than that, they want to consume and be consumed. Sex is not just about pleasure, it's about power exchange, emotional revelation, and claiming someone's soul deep. The Gemini horse enters this arena with a completely different toolkit. They are the adventurer, the curious explorer who sees the bedroom as a stage for improvisation and creativity. They don't like scripts, repetition, or overly serious tones. Their sexuality is infused with playfulness, flirtation, laughter, and surprises. Where the snake brings depth, the horse brings air. They're light on their feet, emotionally flexible, and interested in trying everything, once. Twice, if it's fun. For them, sex is more about variety and freedom than intensity and fusion. So what happens when the deep diver meets the shapeshifter? At first, the result is undeniable: explosions. The kind of nights that blur into morning, where nothing goes as expected, and no one leaves unaffected. The snake is drawn to the horse's spontaneity, that dazzling ability to transform the moment into magic. The horse is captivated by the snake's presence, how every look seems to hold a secret, every move feels intentional. There's laughter, then silence. Teasing, then dominance. It's a carnival one night, a power play the next. But like all thrill rides, what excites can also unsettle. Misunderstandings seep in. The Aries snake, with their need for soul-deep connection, might feel the horse's playful, sometimes casual approach as emotionally empty. They might think, "Are you really here with me, or are you somewhere else in your mind?" When the snake gives their body, they give everything. If they sense the horse is not doing the same, jealousy, possessiveness, or emotional withdrawal can emerge. Meanwhile, the Gemini horse may start to feel suffocated. They want lightness, options, and room to breathe. If the snake becomes too intense or demanding, the horse may emotionally detach or retreat altogether. To them, sex should always be free, never an obligation or interrogation. If they sense emotional control, they bolt. not because they don't care, but because the idea of being owned terrifies them. And yet, this push-pull is what keeps the fire alive, if both can learn to respect the other's rhythm. The key to unlocking their full sexual chemistry lies in one word: balance. The Aries snake must learn to embrace the moment, not just chase meaning. Sometimes the deepest connection is found in laughter, in lightness, in spontaneity. They must learn to let go of control without losing depth, to enjoy the play without fearing emotional betrayal. The Gemini horse must learn that depth doesn't mean confinement, that staying present in vulnerability doesn't rob them of their freedom, it elevates it. They can explore while still anchoring emotionally. Their lightness is beautiful, but when paired with a little grounding, it becomes transcendent. When they meet in the middle, something rare happens, a merging of energies that spans the entire spectrum. From raw carnality to playful teasing, from silent intensity to chaotic joy, from mind games to heart truths. Their intimacy becomes a shape-shifting universe where they're constantly discovering new layers, not just of each other, but of themselves. This is not a couple who sticks to the same routine. They'll try things most couples only fantasize about, not because they want shock value, but because they trust each other enough to push boundaries. There's always a new edge to explore, a new scenario to flip. Their chemistry is fluid, sometimes dominant, sometimes vulnerable, sometimes primal, sometimes poetic. But this only works when they choose each other fully. When the snake stops trying to pin the horse down, and the horse stops trying to outrun emotional gravity. In that space, between chaos and chemistry, they find a rhythm that's wild, weird, and wildly theirs. Sex between an Aries snake and Gemini horse isn't just about pleasure, it's about discovery. It's art, it's war, it's surrender, and if they nurture it right, it's unforgettable. Friendship, the wild card duo. As friends, the Aries snake and Gemini horse are like firecrackers in a glass jar, loud, energetic, and always unpredictable. This friendship is equal parts chemistry and chaos, a dynamic born of contradiction but powered by mutual fascination. They shouldn't work, and yet somehow, they do. When these two signs come together, it's not a calm, quiet companionship. It's a series of wild, weird, and wildly entertaining chapters written at full speed, with little regard for convention or expectation. Their bond lives on surprise, thrives on stimulation, and always seems to sit on the edge of either brilliance or burnout. The Aries snake, by nature, is reserved, calculating, and deeply intuitive. They don't open up to just anyone, and their friendships are curated like fine art. To the snake, loyalty is sacred and trust is earned, not given. They prefer quality over quantity in social circles, and they seek friends who challenge their intellect, respect their privacy, and elevate their purpose. With the fiery influence of Aries, this snake also brings ambition, courage, and a drive to lead. They are the strategist of any group, often watching the chaos from the edge, unless, of course, they started it. Enter the Gemini horse, a whirlwind of curiosity, charm, and momentum. This friend is always in motion, physically, mentally, and emotionally. They chase novelty, jump between interests, and rarely dwell in stillness. They're spontaneous, deeply social, and allergic to boredom. Conversations with them feel like improv theater, witty, insightful, and borderline ridiculous. The Gemini horse collects people the way others collect stamps. They're inclusive, vibrant, and often the one suggesting an impromptu trip or a 2 a.m. taco run. They don't just live life, they perform it. So, what happens when the measured, brooding snake meets the kinetic, conversational horse? A friendship that no one sees coming, and everyone else envies. The snake is intrigued by the horse's lightness. There's something liberating about being around someone so unburdened by emotional complexity. The horse offers the snake a rare gift, the permission to let go. To laugh without a reason. To act without a 5-step plan. The horse, in turn, is fascinated by the snake's depth. They find it grounding, mysterious, even sexy. They admire how the snake doesn't need constant noise to feel alive, how they listen deeply, and speak only when it matters. This odd couple dynamic brings out the best in both. The snake may find themselves doing things they swore they'd never do, karaoke, maybe, or ziplining on a Tuesday. The horse, under the snake's influence, may start thinking more critically, reflecting more deeply, and, shockingly, keeping a calendar. Their differences become catalysts for growth. The snake becomes more spontaneous. The horse becomes more anchored. And somewhere between late-night debates and bizarre adventures, a genuine bond forms. But make no mistake, it's not all smooth sailing. The snake's emotional depth and need for consistency can clash hard with the horse's inconsistency and emotional detachment. To the snake, the horse can sometimes feel flaky, unreliable, or too scattered to take seriously. To the horse, the snake can come across as judgmental, intense, or overly analytical. When disagreements arise, they don't blow up, they erode. It's the silent judgments, the subtle disappearances, the shifting energy that slowly builds tension. And if jealousy or competition creeps in, things get messier. The snake is territorial, even with friends. They don't like sharing loyalty. The horse is a social butterfly and won't give up their freedom just to appease one friend's emotional security. If not addressed, this can drive a wedge into the friendship, creating passive-aggressive distance and quiet resentment. But here's the twist, they can come back from it, and often do. Why? Because at their core, they respect each other. The snake sees the horse as a breath of fresh air they didn't know they needed. The horse sees the snake as a mirror, reflecting back parts of themselves they often ignore. They are each other's foil, and in that contrast lies real magic. Over time, they learn the dance. The snake stops expecting the horse to show up the same way twice. The horse learns how much their presence, when it's real, means to someone who doesn't open up easily. They develop a unique communication style, part sarcasm, part philosophy, part unspoken energy that only they understand. Their friendship, when nurtured, can span decades. It will be marked by spontaneous road trips, emotionally charged debates, hysterical laughter, periods of silence, and meaningful reunions. It's the kind of friendship that doesn't always make sense on paper but makes perfect sense in real life. The snake may never fully understand the horse's refusal to sit still. The horse may never totally grasp the snake's need to control the undercurrents. But they learn to honor it, and in doing so, they build something far more enduring than agreement. They build trust. In the end, the Aries Snake and Gemini Horse aren't the kind of friends who talk every day. But when they do, it's as if no time has passed. Because the connection isn't linear. It's cosmic. Their friendship defies patterns, bends expectations, and, against all odds, just works. Business compatibility. Brains meets bravado. Now this is a duo that can either dominate an industry or destroy a startup, depending on who's steering the ship. When an Aries Snake and a Gemini Horse come together in business, what you get isn't just a partnership, it's a combustible cocktail of vision, energy, stubbornness, and flair. Their dynamic is electric. They move fast, they think faster, and when they're aligned, they can shift markets and shape industries. But when they're not, the implosion is just as spectacular. In the business world, the Aries Snake is a visionary, but not the loud, performative kind. The snake brings a quiet power, a razor-sharp mind, and an instinct for long-term wins. Strategic by nature and deeply private by design, the snake doesn't share plans easily. They operate like chess masters, mapping 5 moves ahead, calculating the risks, and never tipping their hand too soon. Aries adds heat, speed, and aggression to that mix, giving this snake the courage to act decisively and with confidence. They're the kind of leader who can sit in silence during a meeting, then deliver a single sentence that changes the entire direction of a project. They aren't afraid of conflict, and they don't waste time on fluff. If they see a path, they take it. If they smell weakness, they outmaneuver it. Meanwhile, the Gemini Horse is an idea machine, constantly thinking, constantly talking, constantly connecting. If the Aries Snake is the cold-blooded strategist, the Gemini Horse is the high-voltage generator. They thrive in fast-paced environments and feed off excitement. They are natural communicators, pitching, promoting, networking, brainstorming, and storytelling with magnetic ease. Their mind races with innovation. 1 hour, they're building a social media campaign. The next, they're pitching a wild new product feature to a room full of executives. They're fearless, persuasive, and never afraid to color outside the lines. Together, these two form an intriguing blend of strategy and creativity. The snake provides structure, focus, and long-range vision. The horse brings energy, adaptability, and flair. The snake tightens the bolts, the horse adds wings. In the right environment, they become a powerhouse, one that not only gets things done but does so in a way that disrupts and dazzles. But success isn't guaranteed. In fact, trouble often arrives wearing a very stylish suit. The friction begins when roles blur. The snake, methodical and measured, might grow frustrated with the horse's improvisational chaos. The horse, fueled by speed and instinct, might feel suffocated by the snake's need for control and secrecy. The snake may see the horse as unreliable, too scattered to follow through, too focused on optics over outcomes. The horse, on the other hand, might view the snake as rigid or manipulative, someone who overthinks everything, dismisses spontaneity, and doesn't trust easily. And then there's ego. The snake wants control of the narrative. They want the final say, the power to pivot. The horse wants the spotlight, the recognition, the right to experiment and fail gloriously. Unless both partners can check their egos at the door, small disagreements can spiral into full-blown power struggles. The boardroom turns into a battlefield, where strategy clashes with speed, and no one walks away without a scar. To make this partnership thrive, they must define and respect their lanes. The snake needs to own strategy, negotiations, risk analysis, and long-term planning. This is where they shine, seeing the forest while others focus on the trees. They should be trusted with the big picture, the investor talks, the behind-the-scenes deals that make or break the business. They don't need to be flashy, they just need to be respected. The horse, on the other hand, should be given full freedom in marketing, client relations, and innovation. This is where they become unstoppable. They can take an abstract concept and make it viral. They know how to excite people, how to move markets with words and energy. Their creativity is their currency, and when they're trusted to run with it, they deliver gold. But delegation isn't enough. There also needs to be mutual admiration. The snake must see the value in the horse's chaos, not as a threat, but as a resource. Yes, the horse is unpredictable, but unpredictability often leads to brilliance. The snake's job is not to tame the horse, but to harness them, channel their energy without choking their spirit. The horse must respect the snake's depth, not see it as controlling, but as protective. The snake doesn't ask a million questions to slow things down, they ask because they want to win. They crave excellence. The horse's job is not to rebel against the snake's seriousness, but to complement it with joy, momentum, and agility. When this respect is mutual, they don't just work well together, they set benchmarks for innovation and impact. Their business becomes a hybrid of careful calculation and unapologetic creativity. They balance spreadsheets with storytelling. They chase results, but also build a brand people want to be part of. Over time, they also learn to speak each other's language. The snake learns to laugh more, to improvise, to loosen their grip on perfection. The horse learns to pause, to reflect, and to think one step ahead before galloping full speed into chaos. This evolution doesn't happen overnight, but when it does, they create something rare. A professional relationship that doesn't just function, it flourishes. Their business won't always be tidy. It might grow in wild, uneven bursts. It might be filled with debates, tension, pivots, and paradoxes. But that's their edge. They don't play it safe. They play it smart and loud. And when they succeed, and they will if they stay aligned, it's not just success. It's dominance, not because they followed the rules, but because they rewrote them together. Dark sides, the clash of shadows. Every great story has conflict, and these two bring some deep shadow traits to the relationship. The connection between the Aries Snake and Gemini Horse is passionate, magnetic, and brimming with potential, but underneath all the spark lies a minefield of emotional landmines. When the light fades and the masks come off, what's left are two people whose darkest traits are perfectly engineered to ignite each other's deepest insecurities. Their shadows don't just clash, they mirror, magnify, and sometimes even weaponize each other. The Aries snake can be jealous, controlling, and prone to manipulation when threatened. On the surface, they appear cool, charismatic, and self-possessed. But beneath that poised exterior simmers a deep need for emotional dominance. They don't just want to be loved, they want to be needed, chosen, and prioritized. The moment they sense a shift in attention or loyalty, their inner alarm bells start ringing. Aries intensifies this energy, turning subtle possessiveness into overt power plays. They may begin to test their partner, push buttons, or create emotional traps designed to extract proof of loyalty. It doesn't always come from malice, it often comes from fear. Fear of losing control, fear of not being enough. But the result is the same. They create tension that can slowly choke the life out of the connection. The Gemini horse can be flaky, emotionally inconsistent, and commitment-phobic. On their best days, they are vibrant, charming, and full of laughter. But when intimacy grows deeper or demands begin to feel too heavy, they start to backpedal. Their fear isn't of love, it's of restriction. They equate emotional obligation with a loss of freedom, and once they feel caged, their instincts push them to escape. Instead of engaging, they avoid. Instead of clarifying, they vanish into ambiguity. The snake, with their desire for transparency and clarity, finds this kind of behavior maddening and threatening. The more the horse retreats, the more the snake tightens their grip, creating a toxic cycle of pursuit and evasion. This can lead to power struggles, trust issues, and long periods of silence punctuated by explosive arguments. The snake will often go silent not out of peace, but as punishment. They know the power of withdrawal and they wield it like a weapon. The horse, on the other hand, may pretend everything is fine, while secretly plotting an exit strategy just to reclaim a sense of autonomy. Communication devolves into code, half-truths, sharp jabs, and unsaid resentments. Eventually, when the tension becomes unbearable, it explodes. And when it does, it's not a gentle disagreement, it's war. Words become daggers, accusations fly, and the emotional fallout can take weeks, or longer, to clean up. The biggest danger? When both stop listening and start trying to win. Because in a battle of egos, no one walks away whole. The snake, desperate to regain control, might resort to guilt, manipulation, or passive-aggressive tactics. The horse, unwilling to surrender freedom, might use mockery, distance, or indifference as defense. Neither of them wants to feel small, so instead of vulnerability, they choose power. But in choosing power, they lose connection. The love they once felt drowns in the sound of silence, sarcasm, and slamming doors. And yet, all is not lost. Only through emotional maturity and radical honesty can these two manage their darker impulses. The Aries snake must learn that control is not the same as connection. That love isn't proven through submission, but through choice. They must sit with discomfort, allow for emotional ambiguity, and trust that love can breathe without being boxed. Their power lies not in dominance, but in discernment. When they lead with vulnerability instead of fear, they create space for real intimacy. The Gemini horse, on their end, must learn that freedom doesn't mean fleeing. That intimacy isn't a trap, it's a bridge. They have to challenge their instinct to run and instead lean into communication, even when it's uncomfortable. Being emotionally consistent doesn't make them less free, it makes them more seen. And the truth is, deep down, the horse does crave connection. They just need to believe they can have it without losing themselves. When both do the work, something remarkable happens. Their shadows, once destructive, become guides. The snake learns to love without controlling. The horse learns to stay without disappearing. They begin to hear each other, not just respond to triggers. They speak honestly, fight fairly, and forgive fully. And in doing so, they transform conflict into clarity. This relationship will always carry friction, it's part of their chemistry. But friction isn't always bad. Sometimes, it polishes. Sometimes, it forges. And if they're willing to face the mirror, even the darkest sides can lead to the brightest kind of love, the kind built not on illusion, but on truth. Life goals values, fast versus focused. At the core of it, Aries Snake and Gemini Horse want very different things, but both want to live fully. This is what makes their connection both exhilarating and challenging. Their values, priorities, and long-term visions often seem to sit on opposite ends of the spectrum, but it's not a hopeless divide. It's a dynamic tension with the potential to fuel mutual evolution. These two operate with fundamentally different life philosophies, yet each has something vital to offer the other. When they stop trying to convert each other and start learning from one another, their lives and relationship begin to bloom in unexpected ways. The Aries Snake seeks mastery. For them, life is about refinement, elevation, and purpose. They don't do half efforts. Whether they're building a business, climbing a career ladder, nurturing a relationship, or even planning a vacation, they want to do it right, and they want to be the best at it. The snake's methodical nature, fused with Aries' bold ambition, produces a powerhouse individual who strives for excellence and control in every area. They crave results, but not just quick wins, lasting impact. Legacy is important. They want to look back and see a trail of meaningful accomplishments, solid relationships, and clear progress. Their time is currency. Their energy is focused. Their goals aren't just dreams. They're roadmaps with milestones and deadlines. Everything has a purpose. Everything should contribute to the greater narrative of their life. The Gemini Horse seeks experience. To them, life is a moving target, and the joy is in chasing it, not pinning it down. Their days are built around exploration, discovery, and moments that surprise them. They thrive on change, variety, and freedom. Goals? Sure, but only if they're flexible and exciting. Routines and rigid structures often feel like cages. They're not anti-success, they just define success differently. It's not about control, it's about expansion. Not about refining one thing, it's about touching everything at least once. They're drawn to people, places, and ideas like a magnet to motion. They want to live 10 lives in one. Learn 10 languages. Change careers 5 times. Tell 1,000 stories. Their legacy isn't built brick by brick. It's scattered across continents and moments, stitched together like a beautiful, chaotic tapestry. So what happens when the conqueror meets the wanderer? At first, there can be frustration, sometimes even judgment. The snake may see the horse as unfocused, irresponsible, or addicted to novelty. When will you settle down? They might ask. What's the end goal here? They may struggle to take the horse's passion seriously if it lacks structure or long-term payoff. Meanwhile, the horse may view the snake as uptight, rigid, or emotionally constipated. Why does everything have to be so intense? They might wonder. Do you ever just enjoy life without trying to own it? This mismatch in pace and philosophy can create tension. The snake wants to go deep. The horse wants to go wide. The snake wants mastery. The horse wants variety. But within that friction lies something powerful: balance. The snake teaches the horse the value of commitment. When the horse slows down long enough to learn something deeply, whether it's a person, a skill, or a purpose, they discover a sense of fulfillment they never knew they craved. Under the snake's influence, they start to see that consistency doesn't kill freedom, it enhances it. That there's a beauty in staying still long enough to let something grow. That some of life's most transformative experiences aren't in chasing the next big thing, but in digging roots and watching them flourish. The snake helps the horse realize that depth can be its own kind of adventure. The horse teaches the snake the beauty of letting go, that not everything needs a 5-year plan or a measurable outcome. That some of life's richest joys are spontaneous, unplanned, and messy. That there's growth in not knowing, in exploring for the sake of exploring. Under the horse's influence, the snake starts to loosen their grip. They may begin to say yes to last-minute road trips, to crazy ideas, to laughter without analysis. The horse reminds the snake that life isn't always about winning, it's also about living. About dancing in the middle of chaos, and still finding yourself more whole. When aligned, they both evolve toward a more complete version of themselves. The snake gains flexibility, the horse gains depth. Together, they begin to write a shared story that honors both structure and spontaneity. Their life goals stop being about compromise and start being about integration. They can build a business and travel the world. They can have a committed partnership and keep the spark of surprise alive. They can parent, create, invest, explore, all without losing themselves or forcing the other to change. Their shared value becomes not a single path, but a shared intention, to live fully, authentically, and expansively. The snake's definition of success expands. The horse's definition of freedom deepens. They become mirrors, not molds. And in doing so, they unlock a kind of synergy that few couples ever achieve. Their journey won't always be smooth, but it will be rich. Rich in learning, rich in contrast, rich in emotional texture and shared growth. And ultimately, that's the greatest goal of all, not just to chase a life of value, but to create one together. Final verdict: a beautiful storm if you can weather it. Aries Snake and Gemini Horse are not a perfect match on paper. In fact, if you were to line up their traits side by side, it would look more like a case study in contrasts than compatibility. One is rooted, deliberate, and laser-focused. The other is breezy, changeable, and always in motion. One wants mastery, while the other craves movement. One speaks in silences, the other in stories. These are not puzzle pieces that automatically fit. They are thunderclouds and lightning bolts. But sometimes, the most unforgettable storms are the ones that leave behind the richest soil. Their core values, love languages, and emotional wiring often pull them in opposite directions. The Aries Snake is a fortress, passionate yet guarded, loyal yet intense, powerful but wary. They build emotional kingdoms, and once you're inside, you're either royalty or a threat. They value control, integrity, and depth. The Gemini Horse, on the other hand, is a rolling thunder of light. They dance through moments, speak in sparks, and flirt with life's every possibility. They thrive in freedom, ideas, connection, and change. Trying to tie them down is like trying to keep the wind in a jar. Put simply, the snake builds walls and the horse runs wild. Their instincts, goals, and responses to love are frequently at odds. But love isn't about perfection, it's about growth, contrast, and connection. The magic in this pairing lies not in how alike they are, but in how much they can teach one another, if they're brave enough to try. The snake shows the horse the value of stillness, the power of loyalty, and the beauty in going deeper rather than wider. The horse shows the snake that flexibility isn't weakness, that joy can be a compass, and that love doesn't have to be earned through control. They stretch each other's limits, and sometimes, each other's patience, but that stretching creates room for evolution. If these two can respect each other's differences, communicate with honesty, and learn when to bend instead of break, their union becomes unforgettable. The snake must understand that love isn't ownership, that you can hold someone close without holding them down. That mystery, when shared willingly, builds trust. The horse must recognize that consistency is not confinement. That showing up again and again, even when it's hard, is the ultimate form of freedom. They must both surrender the fantasy of changing the other, and instead, fall in love with the truth of who the other person is. Their challenges are real, and they are many. There will be power struggles, miscommunications, moments of silence, and nights when one wants to run while the other wants to hold tighter. But these same tensions also create texture. This relationship has volume, it has color, it has risk, and in that risk lies its reward. It's not flat, not safe, not predictable, but it is alive. Not everyone can handle this kind of cosmic chemistry, but if you do, if you both commit not just to each other, but to understanding each other, not just to loving, but to growing, you don't just write a love story. You write a legend. Because at its best, the Aries Snake and Gemini Horse pairing is like a storm that clears the air. It forces truth to the surface. It shakes loose what's weak and reveals what's strong. It's passionate, unpredictable, imperfect, and utterly unforgettable. It tests your emotional bandwidth. It challenges your assumptions about what love should look like. But it also offers the kind of chemistry that inspires art, change, poetry, and fire. In the end, this isn't the story of an easy match. It's the story of a rare one. A bond that demands courage. A relationship that rewards effort. A connection that transcends logic and touches something wildly human. So, is it worth it? Only if you're ready to weather the storm and dance in the rain. If this breakdown gave you new insights, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss another deep dive into the zodiac's most fascinating pairings. And check the links in the description for bonus content, astrology charts, and our social media for more fire content like this.